outside linebacker. So that's your fudge. That's your newest fudge packer. Is Eli Harold will be taken 30 by the Packers. So we got 2 picks left. Then we're done with the mock. Try and squeeze in the other stuff in like 60 seconds or less, best I can, and then we'll wrap up the show. But at number 31 is the New Orleans Saints. They are having this pick because they traded Jimmy Graham to Seattle for this pick, and starting Pro Bowl young center Max Unger was a great trade for both parties involved, so long as Jimmy Graham returns to his prior form in Seattle. It will be a great trade for both parties. So that's how New Orleans got this pick. They could look Max Williams, tight end, to replace Jimmy Graham straight up. However, I don't think the first tight end goes until the second round. So, with that being said, New Orleans addressed defense with their first pick. I believe they will address offensive line with the second pick, taking the best player available with offensive line versatility. That results in DJ Humphries going to the New Orleans Saints at number 31. Now on the clock, the final pick of the first round belongs to the New England Patriots. Now, the New England Patriots could surprisingly stay here or even trade up should there be a cornerback that they want desperately, or Jordan Phillips or Eddie Goldman at nose tackle, because they lost Darrelle Revis, they lost Brandon Browner. They're desperately hurting to get better and get new corners. So that's a huge need. They also lost their franchise nose tackle in Vince Wilfork. So those are by far their 2 biggest needs. You could throw offensive line in maybe as a third. They did also lose running back Shane Vereen. So, having said all of that, I believe that ultimately how my draft is played out, they will trade the pick and go into the second round. Someone in the second round, likely the Atlanta Falcons, is going to be my prediction. The Atlanta Falcons are going to trade their second round pick to the New England Patriots, as well as some other picks. And so, closing out the draft at number 32 will be the Atlanta Falcons, and they will select running back Melvin Gordon from Wisconsin. And if it ain't them, it'll be somebody else. Melvin Gordon is still, if he's still on the board there, he's the guy that someone trades up to get, a la Teddy Bridgewater a year ago. And it is also conceivable that the Patriots could simply stay there and pick him as well. Like I said, they do have somewhat of a need at running back. It's not in their nature to draft running backs that high. But if what they've studied film-wise and interview-wise and everything all checks out, it's very possible. So that concludes the first round of our mock draft. Amazing. I can't believe it. We got through it. I hope you found it entertaining. Recap some final stats. I've only interesting stats. I got 2 running backs going in the first round. I got 4 wide receivers only in the first round. No tight ends. 6 offensive linemen, 1 safety, 5 corners, no inside linebackers, 7 defensive ends / outside linebackers, and 5 defensive tackles / nose tackles. So we end up with 14 offensive players taken and 18 defensive players taken. Whew. There you go. We'll have to tune in tomorrow night, 7 o'clock in Chicago on NFL Network and ESPN to watch the NFL Draft and see how much I actually got right. If you can't remember everything that I said, like I said, I will be posting this mock. 1 through 32, picks, trades, everything. Not analysis, but picks and teams and trades on Facebook after the show airs tonight. So check that out. And that is Scotty-Ball on Facebook. And if you need another way to find there, you can go to Twitter at BDST Show. All right, boom. It's wrapped up. The largest meet I've ever been able to give anyone. We wrapped it up. We're done with it. We've got to squeeze everything else here within about a 5-minute window, and then we'll be getting out of here with our balls deep thought of the night. So, all right, the first thing that we have to move on to, I live in Minnesota, so the first thing we got to move on to here is hockey. Our Minnesota Wild defeated the St. Louis Blues 4-2 and advanced to the second round of Lord Stanley's Cup playoffs. Now, for the record, you're welcome, Wild fans. I picked the St. Louis Blues to not only win this series, but win the Stanley Cup, as did a lot of people. But as I mentioned in earlier episodes, I only picked that. Well, in part I picked it because I thought it was possible, but in other part I picked it to not jinx the Wild. I did not want to pick the Wild to win the series and jinx them. Make no mistake about it. I said before the playoffs started, when I saw the matchups, I feel that the winner of the Blues Wild series has a great chance to win it all, and will most likely represent the West in the Stanley Cup Finals. It's a little easier to say it now, but I am 99.999% certain that the winner of this Chicago Blackhawks versus Minnesota Wild second round series will be playing in the finals for the Stanley Cup. It should be a great series. I think it will go at least 6 or 7 games. The Blackhawks are the higher seeds, so they do have the home ice advantage. The first game of that series starts Friday night at 8:30 Minnesota time. The Chicago Blackhawks are a very good team. They're experienced. They're deep. They got stars, but we have stars, and we have depth, and we have a better goalie, and we're healthier, I would argue, as well. So ultimately, advantage Wild in this series, but just the fact that it's the Blackhawks, it makes it tough, because they're kind of our daddy. If we were the Red Sox, they'd be our Yankees. If we're the Vikings, they're our Packers. If we're the Bills, they're our Dolphins or Patriots or anybody else in that division, for that matter. You know what I'm getting at here. So that, combined with them having the home ice advantage, even though we're a phenomenal team on the road, we're better on the road than we are at home. But it's a coin flip. It could go either way. But I really feel that whoever wins this will be representing the West in the finals, and it's going to be an amazing series. Go Wild. Can't wait to watch it. Again, that starts Friday at 8:30. Our other round 2 matches that we know of, quick before we move on, we have in the West, we've got the Anaheim Ducks facing the Calgary Flames. That game will be tomorrow night at 9 o'clock Central Standard Time. Tonight, we have the final round 1 game. It is a Game 7 in Tampa Bay, where the Tampa Bay Lightning are playing the Detroit Red Wings. And that game is probably over by now, so you could go look and see who won and find out who will be traveling to Montreal to likely play the early game on Friday, as the Montreal Canadiens are awaiting the winner of the Tampa Bay Lightning Detroit Red Wings game tonight. Then the other matchup out east in the second round would be the 1 seed New York Rangers versus the 2 seed Washington Capitals. That should be a great rivalry and a great series. All these should be fairly good. The Anaheim Ducks Calgary Flames one, I don't know. That one I don't have a whole lot of interest in. And the Montreal Canadiens versus the Lightning or the Wings, that's, it's okay. But the Rangers versus the Caps and the Wild versus the Blackhawks should be incredibly great, entertaining series if you're any kind of hockey fan of any team whatsoever. So there's all the time we got for hockey this week. We'll move it over to NBA playoffs quick. So out west, we had the number 1 seed Golden State Warriors sweep the New Orleans Pelicans 4-0. The third game in that was incredible. The Pelicans were up 20 points on the Warriors in the fourth quarter, and Steph Curry brought the Warriors back and ended up hitting a prayer of a three-pointer. Well, not a prayer for Steph Curry because he had his feet planted and the ball in his hands. So there's always a 50% chance with him that it's going in. But he made just this ridiculous three-pointer to tie it up and send the game into overtime in Game 3, and they ultimately went on winning that game in overtime. That was the one the Pelicans could have got. Again, they ended up getting swept, but a remarkable season for the Pelicans franchise, getting over that hump, becoming relevant, being a playoff team, having young talent that looks like it's going to be able to be successful and built around for the coming years. So that's what happened in that series. You've also currently got the Memphis Grizzlies up 3-1 on the Portland Trailblazers. Portland is the higher seed in that series, that being the 4-5 matchup. However, Memphis had more wins in the regular season, but Portland won their division, and Memphis didn't. So that's how the seeding worked out there. But Memphis is the better team, without question. Surprised they ended up the 5 seed, and they have currently a 3-1 series lead on that. Also in the West, we had the Houston Rockets close out the Dallas Mavericks 4-1. I heard tons of people saying that was going to go 6-7 games, that the Mavericks had a 50% chance or better of winning that series, and this to me is just further proof that James Harden is in fact your most valuable player. He is not the best player in the NBA, but he is in fact the most valuable player in the NBA. Nothing against you, Stephen Curry. You're extremely valuable to your team too. But Harden is a one-man bearded wrecking crew. And you got plenty of help, Steph. So, anyway, Houston advanced easily out of the first round. And the other Western Conference series we have going on is the best first-round series by far. It's the LA Clippers, the 3 seed, versus the 6 seed San Antonio Spurs. The San Antonio Spurs currently lead 3-2 and can close out that series at home. That has been an awesome series to watch. Check it out. Whenever that Game 6 is, if it's tonight, possibly, might be right on now or after the show. Check that out. That's great basketball. So that's what's going on out west. Out in the east, you had the 5 seed sweep the 4 seed. The Washington Wizards swept the Toronto Raptors, and that was hilarious. Can't talk too much about it. You got the Milwaukee Bucks at the 6 seed, who were down 3-0. The Chicago Bulls won the first 3 games of that series, but Milwaukee has gone on a little bit of a tear and won 2 games in a row. So they've got their final home game, where they could send it to a Game 7, quite possibly. So that's where that series is at. You had the Cleveland Cavaliers sweep the Boston Celtics 4-0. Kevin Love is dinged up. Doesn't matter. They can easily get to the finals with 2 of their big 3, so long as LeBron's one of those 2, regardless. So that's how that series played out. Cavs resting and getting healthy and waiting for their opponent. And then the final Eastern playoff series, believe it or not, you got the number 1 seed Atlanta Hawks tied at 2 games apiece with the Brooklyn freaking Nets. Are you kidding me, Atlanta? Man, it can't just be that Cephalosha's out. Like, he couldn't have meant that much. Atlanta is the number 1 seed, won 5 to 10 more games than the Cavs, were the way better team. This game should have been a sweep or a 4-1 at worst. The fact that it is tied at 2-2 it just bodes all that much better for the Cavaliers that you can lock them into the NBA Finals. Ain't nobody in the East going to touch them. The Bulls and the Hawks were the only potential competition they had, and if they're struggling to put away the Milwaukee Bucks and the freaking Brooklyn Nets, they don't have a snowball's chance in HE double hockey sticks at challenging the Cavaliers. So that's your basketball update. All right, moving on to a tiny bit of baseball. Alex Rodriguez of the New York Yankees is having a good season. He is currently tied for 6th in the American League in home runs with 5 home runs this year, and that puts him 1 shy of tying Willie Mays on the all-time home run record for 4th place. And it puts him 55 home runs behind Babe Ruth, where if he were to do 30 this year, 30 next year, he's going to pass Babe Ruth next year. So A-Rod is back. A-Rod is playing well, and A-Rod is going to be passing some names on some all-time lists, and that's going to allow us all to decide how we feel about that and talk about that at a later date. Other baseball news, it's early in the season, so standings aren't all that relevant. I'm not even going to take the time to cite them. One nice thing going on in baseball is it is rivalry week, so whatever your favorite team is, they're playing their rivals this week. Like the Twins got the Tigers and the White Sox, the Yankees got the Red Sox, like all that stuff. Cardinals and Cubs, I'm sure, and all that good stuff. So rivalry week in baseball. Check out your team's schedule to find out who they're playing and when they're playing. And in one last little bit of Twins news, they still stink. The bats have been coming around a little bit. The pitching has been coming around a little bit. Our outfield defensively is as atrocious. They look like the bad news freaking Bears out there in the outfield defensively. It's as bad as I've ever seen, at least on a Minnesota Twins team. As a Twins fan, we've always had phenomenal center fielders defensively, and in other parts of the outfield as well. So to see that is really tough. But we're just going to have to grow with it, and hopefully some guys get called up or it starts clicking and they can get that changed around. But at least it's nice to see the bats start to come around a little bit. Scoring runs makes it easier for everybody to do their jobs pitching, defensively, all that stuff.